90 Day. The Last Resort star Julia Trubkina opened up about having depression following the death of her close family member. Julia is a beloved cast member since her debut in 90 Day Fiancé Season 8. Julia is from Russia and married Brandon Gibbs to settle down in Virginia, where she struggled to find a footing. After attempting to work as a dancer, stand-up comedian, and model, the 90 Day, The Last Resort Season 2 star turned to her love of dogs for inspiration. Julia had 2 pets and launched a subscription business called Kingdom for Dogs. Julia has been devastated since she heard about the passing of her dog Simba in May 2025. A month later, she is opening up about how she's still grieving his loss. "I allow myself to stop being strong, to be depressed if I need it now, to cry if necessary," Julia wrote in her caption on an Instagram post. Julia shared several pictures of herself in a pleated orange dress as she wrote about how she is allowing herself to stop thinking too much about her future. She wishes to take a little rest and stay strong. Julia used to think she was strong and didn't need to reassure herself, but admitted that the year had not been easy for her emotionally and physically. Slowly but surely, Julia is learning that she doesn't always have to be strong. The past year has been especially hard on her. Losing her beloved dog, Simba, whom she saw as a son, was heartbreaking, especially after Julia learned she may never be able to have children. To make things worse, her relationship with Brandon, the person who should be her support system, is strained. He still questions her loyalty over a mistake she made years ago when they were broken up. Though Julia tries to stay positive, life continues to challenge her emotionally and mentally at every turn. Just as Julia began seeing success with her online business, tragedy struck. Her beloved dog, Simba, suddenly suffered a stroke and passed away, leaving her heartbroken. Around the same time, her father-in-law experienced a serious fall, which has significantly affected his health and added more stress to the family. These events may have strained Julia's relationship with Brandon, especially as he reportedly disagreed with her calling herself a dog mom, since he wants children of his own. Now Julia appears to be coping quietly, channeling her energy into modeling as a way to heal and stay distracted. Julia's decision to open up about her emotional struggles marks a powerful shift in how she views strength. She's pushed through health and relationship issues without showing vulnerability and staying strong. However, she's now allowing herself to cry, rest, and admit that when things feel too heavy, it's not weakness, it's growth. In a world where reality stars want to show off the perfect aesthetic on social media, Julia's honesty stands out. By embracing her emotions instead of hiding them, the 90 Day, The Last Resort star is showing fans that healing begins when one stops pretending they're always okay. Russian 90 Day, The Last Resort star Julia Trubkina announced a major life update after celebrating her big career success in America without Brandon Gibbs. Julia came from a big city to a small town in Virginia where she had to live and work on Brandon's parents' farm. Julia managed to move out, but Brandon's parents controlled them. He started disagreeing with her. Brandon wanted Julia to have a baby and not dance at a club. Brandon then found out Julia had cheated early on in their relationship. The couple agreed to work on their marriage in the finale. However, things were not hunky-dory between Brandon and Julia at the reunion. Now Julia's got a big update. Julia posted an album containing pictures of herself backstage at the tell-all. Wearing her beautiful blue gown, as seen in the reunion episodes, Julia had one hand on her waist and the other held on to a box curated at her Kingdom of Dogs business. Julia captioned her post, "Time to focus on myself, my dogs, my family, friends, my business." Julia's follower at Baronakadidis asked her, "What, you're not gonna concentrate on your marriage with Brandon?" She replied, "Why? I'm say family, sick," although she could have mentioned Brandon's name in the caption if she wanted. Julia had come clean about cheating on Brandon early on in the season. She admitted the extent of her cheating during the tell-all, where Julia revealed she had kissed her ex-boyfriend while she was waiting for the K-1 visa to be approved and was already engaged to Brandon. He claimed she was acting single, and Julia justified it by saying she'd fought with Brandon, but they hadn't talked for a while. As expected, Brandon's parents had shown up to give their 2 cents on Julia's mistake. Shockingly, they supported Julia over their own son. Julia has been faithful to Brandon ever since she came to the US. However, she is upset that Brandon has held the cheating scandal against her for so long and could do it for the rest of their life. Brandon warned Julia that he would be out if something like that were to happen again. He admitted he didn't trust his wife. It's natural for Julia to be miffed with her husband, especially now, after reliving the tell-all 4 months after filming. Julia was let down by Brandon, who wanted time to process something that happened 5 years ago. Brandon not trusting his wife, who's been devoted to him through his ups and downs, shows how insecure he is. Julia was by his side when he was taken to the hospital. She accepted his decision to stay in Virginia, even though she wished to move to a place like Las Vegas. Julia even agreed to get a second opinion from an American doctor after deciding not to have kids due to a medical issue. The least Brandon could do is support his wife. Julia choosing herself amid the 90-day, The Last Resort Season 2 suggests she could be contemplating divorce. However, Brandon Gibbs and Julia Trubkina from 90 Day, The Last Resort have kept fans guessing about whether they are still together after filming Season 2. Julia hails from Krasnodar in Russia but was working in South Korea when she met Brandon from Virginia. Julia did not expect to be living on a farm surrounded by animals when she moved to the US. She also didn't expect to have interfering in-laws like Brandon's parents, Ron and Betty Gibbs, who were far too involved in their son's marriage to Julia. Former go-go dancer Julia recently completed 5 years of living in the US. However, life has been full of challenges for the young reality TV star. Julia has dealt with unemployment, visa issues, baby problems, and more since her 90-day Fiancé Season 8 debut, and Brandon has done little to help ease her distress. There have been instances where Julia has cried on social media while sharing cryptic updates about how messy her life has been since marrying Brandon. Still, Julia is finally seeing better days in America. She's finally celebrating her first major success in the United States. However, is Brandon by her side as she does that? 90 Day, The Last Resort teased a cheating scandal involving Brandon and Julia in the Season 2 trailer. More details were revealed in an episode where the cast did a group hypnotherapy session with a clinical hypnotherapist and life coach, Sarah Malone. It was during this session that Julia came clean about having cheated on Brandon. It was revealed that their long-distance relationship had taken a toll on Julia's decision to be unfaithful. They had been apart for several months at a time, and Julia wondered if Brandon was committed to her. "My wife, she's one person I should be able to trust. And I feel betrayed right now by that person." Julia had cheated on Brandon about 5 years back. She was wondering if Brandon was dating her casually and didn't think they were going to get married and start a new life together. Julia confessed she had kissed her ex when she was in Russia. Brandon told the cameras that cheating was the worst thing Julia could have done. He admitted that divorce had become a stronger possibility after what Julia had done. Julia explained that her decision not to have children with Brandon was a personal choice, largely influenced by a medical concern. She said, "So when I say like I don't want kids, and when I say I don't want because I'm so scared to be in reality. So, I can't have a kids." Overcome with emotion, Julia broke down in tears, struggling to articulate her feelings. She also shared that she had begun discussing the possibility of having children with Brandon, which prompted her to travel to Russia for a doctor's consultation. Julia revealed that Brandon repeatedly advised her to get a second opinion in America. After traveling back to Russia to visit her family, she opted to undergo a full-body checkup. Given the high cost of healthcare in the US, Julia acknowledged she had been dealing with a couple of sicknesses for a long time and anticipated that the tests would confirm them. However, she was shocked to learn that the results indicated she might be unable to have children. Julia and Brandon also had to deal with disagreements when she expressed her wish to bring her parents to America. She hadn't seen her family in years and wanted to badly meet them. However, Brandon expressed disapproval and was unsupportive of Julia's decision. He worried about how Julia's parents' visit would interfere with their lives. Julia wished to get in touch with her family and, considering how close Brandon is to his own parents, he should have supported Julia. However, Julia had to apply for her parents' visa sneakily behind his back, leading to another argument between them. Brandon met Julia when she was working as a go-go dancer. Brandon had still fallen in love with Julia on the day he started talking to her and even decided to marry her. However, Brandon didn't want Julia to work as a go-go dancer in America. Julia has had a hard time finding jobs in the country in the last 5 years, despite being skilled in various aspects and having worked more than 15 jobs in her past, such as bodybuilder, singer, waitress, hookah girl, designer, party planner, and drawing teacher. Brandon didn't want Julia to dance at a strip club even though it would make her an income that was more than what Brandon was bringing home. Brandon asked Julia, "So why stop there? Why don't you do P?" He was ashamed of his friends finding out that Julia worked at a strip club. Brandon cautioned Julia that he didn't want her to do something that many proud guys wouldn't want their girlfriend or wife to do. Brandon didn't really act mean with Julia in their initial 90-day fiancé seasons, but he changed over the last few years. Brandon showed his nasty side when he talked down to Julia and called her names even on camera. While he had always been seen as a mild-mannered man on the show, Brandon was out of line after Julia danced on top of the bar and unintentionally exposed herself. Brandon mentioned that Julia was dressed like a witch and did not look like someone who he'd want to be the mother of his children. He also found Julia's dancing to be suggestive. Julia did not agree with Brandon. Brandon and Julia spent a lot of time traveling in the early days of their relationship. They mostly went to Europe before 90-Day Fiancé, and after they got married, they took a liking to cruises and visiting places such as the Dominican Republic, St. Thomas Virgin Islands, and the Bahamas. The Last Resort was filmed a year ago, so it's very obvious which couples stayed together and which couples split, and Julia and Brandon are among the ones who are still making things work. Julia tries to make it look like she's all by herself in the US and mostly posts pictures with her dogs. Brandon has spoiled their storyline by sharing videos of him and Julia even celebrating Christmas 2024 together with their parents. The couple also went on a romantic European vacation in late 2024, and this time around, Julia couldn't resist the temptation to show off the pictures on social media. It was only after Julia and Brandon were announced as the Last Resort cast that they made it their agenda on Instagram to show that they'd split. While Brandon did not approve of Julia dressing in revealing outfits on 90-Day, The Last Resort, he doesn't seem to mind Julia having an OnlyFans account where she presumably posts risque content about herself. Funnily enough, Brandon himself has an OnlyFans account, so his outrage over Julia's supposedly provocative dancing looked over the top. Julia is currently pursuing a career as a dog trainer, inspired by her father-in-law's family business and her own love for dogs. In January 2025, Julia launched monthly subscription boxes for dogs. Each box is carefully curated with new surprises every month to bring joy to pet owners and their furry friends. Julia has named her business Kingdom of Dogs. Again, Brandon has refrained from commenting on Julia's business to keep up with their 90-Day, The Last Resort storyline. However, the pictures and videos that Julia posts on social media suggest that Brandon is being a dutiful Instagram husband and doing all the camera work for his wife. Julia Trubkina from 90-Day, The Last Resort shared heartbreaking news about a family member's passing on social media. She faced many challenges in her relationship with her husband, Brandon Gibbs, over the past 5 years. However, they recently joined 90-Day, The Last Resort Season 2, where they worked through their marital issues and rebuilt trust. In early 2025, Julia also launched her new gift box business catering to pet owners, selling subscription boxes filled with pet goodies. Within a few weeks, Julia's business became successful, gaining numerous new customers across the United States. In the past few weeks, Julia found it increasingly challenging to focus on her business because her dog, Simba, was struggling. Now she's opening up with a heartbreaking update. She recently shared that her dog Simba lost the ability to walk due to his failing legs. In her most recent update, Julia revealed Simba had passed away following a prolonged illness. Reflecting on their time together, both Julia and Brandon expressed their grief.